My next guest has almost 2 decades leading in-house teams in insurance, technology, and banking, as well as consulting across travel, wholesale, retail, and the financial services sector. His experience spans recruitment strategy and transformation, TA technology reviews, market mapping, EVP, and employee brand strategies. He is a sought after consultant these days, helping businesses to improve the way they hire. Jason Burns, welcome to Talent Blazers.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for asking me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to unpacking this episode. We're going to be focusing in on the importance and the process of getting the discovery right when building a meaningful EVP. Before we jump into that, do you mind sharing who Business Area are, the business you represent?
Yeah, for sure. Business Array is a small management consultancy. We are largely former colleagues from our time in-house leading HR and marketing teams. And we've got three kind of core pillars in our business. There's a business strategy and planning space. We have a very successful digital marketing communications business, and then there's the HR and people stream where I sit within, specialising in talent. And it's not just former colleagues though. We have let others in and have benefited from having people out with our relationship network to come and help grow this really fun and vibrant and adult business. Yeah.
Nice. Well, apart from doing many large EVPs at other organizations that you've worked with, you've done a number of them through Business Area as well. And you've probably got a bunch of them on the go. How many are you juggling at the moment?
We've got about 6 or 7 at the moment, and almost all of them coming towards the kind of the conclusion of the creative space and allowing our clients to actually get out there and start bringing them to life. But it's been a buoyant year, and this financial year is starting off really well. So we've got kind of another 2 or 3 that we're just about to commence. So, and a real variety of different kind of types of clients, different industries, sizes, motivations, business drivers as well. So it's a really exciting space, and it's really rewarding. I don't know that sounds kind of cliched, but it is actually real. It's an immense amount of fun working on this type of work.
Yeah. And you mentioned just a little bit offline that the discovery process is really the most meaningful part of building an EVP, in your opinion. Do you mind if you just share why you believe that to be true?
Yeah. Look, there's 4 or 5 key components of building EVP or an employer brand, and that starts with discovery through the development of your kind of brand strategy through to design and assets, and then delivery through campaigns and the way that you use it. But I think if you look at discovery as even remove the EVP connotation to it, I think probably all of us have been caught out when we have gone straight to solution mode and not maybe done enough groundwork or enough research or planning for a program, a piece of work, an initiative, a business opportunity. And without kind of research and understanding, the kind of the nuts and bolts and the plan and what it is you're actually selling or what service it is you're actually delivering, then really you're shooting in the dark and it's guesswork. And so, you wouldn't kind of, no car company would launch a car without doing its research on, does somebody want to buy it? Is it going to go fast enough? Is it going to satisfy the wants and the needs? Is it going to be cost effective? Are people going to be brand ambassadors for it? You would never do that with a product. And why would you do that with a career opportunity and a product and an experience that somebody is essentially buying from you and trusting you with their career? Why would you go to market with guesswork about what it's like to work in an organization? It just doesn't make sense to do it, to not do it.
Yeah. I really love the concept of treating your EVP like a product, and there's a lot of takeaways from companies who are taking new products to market. Obviously, an EVP, the project leaders should be thinking about collecting data and from various sites. How do you think people should be thinking about the interviews and the cohorts of types of people they should be interviewing?
Yeah, look, I think there's a wee bit before that, in terms of kind of your objective and why you're doing it. So I don't think there would be a talent team locally in Australia that wouldn't know they have to do something to improve kind of the way they tell their story and attract and importantly retain talent. So you need to have kind of a purpose and an objective of why you do EVP and employer brand. And it's not just necessarily about talent attraction and retention. It should also be about kind of how is it actually going to solve a business problem that you might have, or meet the demands of your business strategy as well. And I think unless you have that, then the story that you're going to tell when you bring people together to do your discovery work is going to be flawed. And the starting point usually is that, well, the barrier usually, and then the starting starting point really should be getting your leadership team to own and really be involved in the EVP and the employer brand. So my view is you bring there's two kind of clear sets of segmentation that you look at when you do your focus group. So my experience of it has been, in the way that we do it at Business Surrey, is we would generally talk individually to almost every member of your leadership team, including your chief exec. A couple of reasons behind that. Of course, you want to understand their employment experience, their strategy for the business, but then it's also to kind of ensure buy-in happens at that level. Because quite often, it sits within the custodian of EVP is HR and the talent team, and you can be waving the flag or shaking the tree from the middle, and you're kind of on your own with it. That's the kind of destiny for that's design. That's destiny is failure for that stuff. So you really need to get kind of leadership teams on board. But in terms of kind of, how do you kind of source your data and understand what the employment experience is like? Well, there's some steps that we almost insist on in the way that I run the discovery pieces of work, and that is you should really be talking to people within your organization that you consider talent. So they're high performers, high potential, people that are going to drive your business forward. They're truly engaged. They're people you would be devastated to lose. And why would you do that? Because it's, there's always a component of people that are unhappy in your organization and that don't perform. Leave the engagement survey to let people whinge and moan. This is ostensibly a really positive piece of work. And you want to hear the view of talented people, because that's what you want to attract, right?
So when you're advocating to speak with the most engaged people, are you taking into consideration a diverse range of people, or is it more just the ones that are highly skilled?
Look, where possible, you want a range of kind of diverse views and thoughts and ways of thinking and approach, but it's not always possible. So is it the first lens? No. I'd be really honest and open with that. But where possible, if you've got the luxury, usually with a bigger organization, you have the luxury of selecting from numerous people that you want to talk to. But less can be more as well. So diversity absolutely would be great, but it's not always the focus, because you just don't have it. And that could actually be one of the drivers of building your EVP and your employer brand strategy, and how you bring that to life to attract. Because you can often identify through some of this information that you are lacking in diversity in certain areas, and that can be a business driver.
It could be a driver, yeah.
But what is critical in my view, and it remains proven, is talented, engaged people give the best output and give you the best data. And where possible, also, we try and segment those focus groups into their talent segments. So all your tech together, your software developers together, your marketers together, your call center people, your branch people if you're distributed. And that gives you really, really good quality data in the first go, in that you can almost segment it. You can bubble everything up to kind of get a sense of the whole organization, commonalities for the EVP and employer brand. But then what you also sit with is segmented data, so you can actually see where there is nuances and differences. Because how you go to market for a call center operator, should be different from how you go to market from a software developer. Different jobs, often different motivators, but brought together commonly across kind of the organization in terms of some of the drivers.
Are the questions much different from interviewing the executive team versus the people who are high achievers within the organization?
No, they tend to. There's some common questions that we would always ask across those cohorts. I would tend the questions within the employee focus group, talent segmented groups are always the same because it helps with the consistency of the analysis and the ability to calibrate that. The exec is a component of there's two parts usually to go because the exec will have the lens on. Quite often they want to tell you what they think the organization is about and what other people's experience is, and then we allow for that. I also want to hear what their own employee experience is. And we also use that as, there is some strategy.
Are they a bit more inspirational, the executives?
I think there is often some disconnect from the reality of the organization. Now, my experience hasn't been where it's been so drastically different. It's been terrifying. That hasn't been the case. But, there has been occasions where, we've had to have a conversation to say, I'm trying to kind of give some examples without giving it away too much. But, there's a client we work with where, there's a real sense of family within the organization. What they do, their purpose is there's a lot of it's children oriented. And, there was a commonality to go, it's probably as beneficial to be a parent, to work within this organization, to connect with the brand. That was quite live within the exec group, and then within the employee community, it was absolutely no. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Now that was quite an interesting dichotomy there that we had to kind of go back and go, well, this is what we heard, and it does disconnect a wee bit. Now that wasn't overly dramatic, but there can be a disconnect, and that's often the case within any organization, between the exec and the boots on the ground population. But the executive or the leadership interviews that we do, in part, are quite strategic in ensuring buy-in. And I think I mentioned this before. You really want the CEO to either be completely on board with their employer brand, feel they're the custodian, or can fake it enough to kind of be convincing. And then, this is an ongoing journey. You just don't do marketing once or recruitment marketing once, so getting marketing on board with this in terms of resource and assistance, or on occasion just to kind of keep out of it. You can't be half pregnant with that kind of stuff. The CFO, it requires funding, so I try and set the scene for my talent acquisition colleagues, to ensure that we get everyone on board. And then it's a good reminder to go during the exec interview. I need to remind you committed to this, you're still on board. So it's a big change management piece, this stuff, and people realize they need it. It's desirable, they want to go down this pathway, but it's an ongoing piece of work. You just don't do this once. It lives and it breathes, and it should be constantly on the agenda. So it's a big change management piece as much as it is having a beautiful, meaningful, authentic EVP at the end of it.
How do you think the executive team should be introducing the idea that an EVP is being developed to encourage high achieving employees to be their authentic self, to share the good and the bad, which is really what you want to get, you want to hear.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a bit leading from the front. It's where you would hope any executive or C-suite team member can at least kind of realize what's in it for them. To build an EVP employer brand. I think we make the mistake of, and we've made it this our own fault as a community, I think, in HR. It's not some HR piece of fluff that's about kind of creating a really beautiful video or, kind of polishing up your job ads. There's actually business drivers. There's a saving to be made to cut turnover in the first 6 months. It's about kind of how quickly, there's organizations we were working with that are going through big technology roadmap changes that aren't technology businesses. By getting the right talent on board, that can be driven, that roadmap can be achieved much more quickly by bringing kind of better engaged salespeople into your organization. Hopefully your revenue will increase. And in some occasions, we've discovered that tenure has been a problem. Long tenure has been a problem in parts of the organization. It's stymied growth and diversity of thinking, and your ability to kind of pivot, what your organization is about and who you are and the destination. I mean, whilst your EVP, in my view, should maybe be maximum 20% aspirational, because otherwise it's not authentic. There is reasons to kind of make it, maybe emphasize the aspiration to allow people to go, well, maybe this isn't the place for me to stay. Maybe this isn't the place for me to come and join. Your EVP and employer brand, and I position this all the time, in my view, is as much about telling talent what you're not as opposed to what you are. It's the same thing. Because if people know what you're not, or they know what they're getting, or they know some of the pitfalls or the things that they might not love so much about an organization, ideally they'll opt out early. They'll not apply. They'll not become part of the organization. Or if they do, they know what they're getting. And I think that's really important. We see a few examples of that, particularly where it might be industries that are aspirational, or, that people have a perception of what it might be like, but the reality is quite different.
So a good EVP should be able to repel people as much as lure them into the organization to buy in what it's really like to work within the business. Do you see that the consumer brand can often detract from or be a benefit to the employer brand?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think repel is probably a strong word, but it's the right word. You want people to make good decisions before they buy, or before they commit, and I think that's a bit kind of your employer brand. Always say, particularly when we introduce it, it should be three things. It should be authentic, authentic, and authentic. If it's one of those, you're onto a winner right away. And that's a bit kind of giving people insight into what you're not. And also, I think the consumer brand can get in the way because you create a perception of what it might be like to work somewhere based on the product, perhaps. Like, we work with a great organisation. We work with Baby Bunting. We're doing their EVP employer brand at the moment. And it's really important for people to know when they come to selecting stores, whilst they are working with lovely products and it's a great time in people's lives, retail is really hard work. You're going to be dirty. You're going to be working on sociable hours. You're going to have to climb. You're going to get that polo shirt ripped. It's hard work. And we also, there's other, aspirational industries where we work in with a fertility business. It's really important that people make a decision to go. That is an amazing outcome for some people that go through that journey. But if you're a nurse in that space, you're quite often dealing with people that is the end of the road. It's never going to work. They're just not, the dream of being a parent isn't going to happen. And that's something really important to decide before you come on, because that's an emotion that you just wouldn't get. So it's, again, it's about, telling people what you're not is as important about telling people who you are, but as long as it's done authentically. And we see that in every job ad. Every job ad we see, at least 80% of them will say, great culture, great place to work, need to be resilient. It's all nonsense. There's no context behind it.
So much more they can do. Yeah. All right. Last question. We touched on the focus group and interviewing people. What are a few tips for the types of questions when you are interviewing the high achieving people? You're doing it all in one room. You're using Zoom these days. How are you?
Yeah.
What types of questions are you asking to provoke conversation?
Well, the format you do, in terms of kind of where you're comfortable, but I mean, I'm kind of obviously going to say this as a consultant, but I'm saying this from experience. The best thing I ever did when I was in-house and I was dragged towards this was to bring someone else in to do the focus groups. Because you cannot help in your mind, particularly in HR, justify. And when you do hear the things that are challenging or, maybe not so great about the organisation, you're in your brain, you're justifying and go, well, you knew this or you knew that before you got it. You can't help it. So that external eye is really, really important. It was the best thing we did when I was in-house. But of course, I'm going to say that as a consultant. But what we originally would have, pre-pandemic, these were focus groups were all done in person, around a room, post-it notes, trying to write notes, remember what you were hearing, usually with a scribe. And they were effective and they worked well. The best thing about doing this through the pandemic was doing it via Teams or Zoom. You were contained, we could do it in an hour and a half. Whilst it was smaller groups, then you had to get kind of into the swing of engaging via the camera. You were also able to use chat to get people to jot down their thoughts. We were able to transcript ideas. We were able to kind of manage the conversations really well. And what that actually created for us was the ability to calibrate that discovery much quicker, cut that in half. In terms of the questions, I mean, there's nothing, I'd love to say there's some real groundbreaking IP here that, changes the way you you kind of do the discovery work for your EVP, but it's not. It's really about understanding what are the motivations for that talent to have joined the organisation. How is it matched what they thought they were getting? What gets people motivated out of bed in the morning? One question I do ask, and you can have this one, is imagine the only way we could recruit was to kind of stand on top of the building and shout and yell and go, "This is why you have to join here. This is the reason you come." What would you yell? That's a bit confronting for people to get their head around. And then it's also about kind of being considerate to what are some of the things that are challenging or tough, or what should potential talent really consider before they consider leaving their current job and joining you. And those are often the things that can be more challenging. One of the interesting parts is, though, and I still find this really kind of bizarre every time I do it, we focus so much on thinking EVP is benefits. This is a benefit, your football table, or have a fridge full of milk or something. That's carry on that we put on job ads. But one of the questions we ask is, tell us about the benefits that you admire the most within your organization. What do you use? What should we be telling people? And what would you like to have? That question is almost always the toughest one to answer. People don't get it. So anyone that is, within the HR team that is spending heaps and heaps of time worrying about their benefits, don't, because I just don't think the population care. It's actually way more about the employment experience they get, the connectivity, how connected they are to the brand, what's in it for them from a career perspective. Benefits is 5% if it's anything, in my experience, but we spend so much time worrying about them.
And do you find it beneficial reflecting on the meeting? I'm assuming you're advocating to record the session via Teams or Zoom.
Yeah, we record it, but we never share it. So it's a safe space. We calibrate that data, we anonymize it where possible. Particularly if there's it's like an engagement survey, right? You want it to be kind of confidential and people feel it's ostensibly a great piece of work. It's a fun piece of work, but we anonymize it and we never ever share the videos. It's only for my consumption and my colleagues when we calibrate it.
Yep, nice one. Well, we will definitely be sharing this episode. It's been really insightful, and it's been an absolute joy having you on Talent Blazers. Thanks for your time, Jason.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.